And memorials have continued across the Twin Cities after Renee Good was shot and killed by an ICE agent last week. Now, people are gathering in public spaces to grieve, speak out, and call for accountability. And demonstrations are expected to continue as the situation evolves. And to help us understand what rights are protected under the law when protests happen in public spaces, we're joined by Jane Kirtley, a media law and First Amendment professor at the University of Minnesota. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Yeah, so when we talk about protests and memorials happening on public streets, what rights are actually protected under law?
Under the First Amendment to the Constitution, we have a right to assemble, we have a right to rally, we have a right to demonstrate, we have a right to protest and to express our views. As long as we're on public streets, highways, sidewalks, and so forth.
Okay, so we do kind of have a framework there. And of course, the street where the shooting happened was shut down for a little bit, and then it opened back up Friday morning. What authority does a city have to remove barricades or reopen streets, even when a community wants that space preserved?
The government has both statutory and regulatory authority. The whole idea is that they have the authority to maintain the safety of the streets and to permit both pedestrians and vehicular traffic to get through and for public safety vehicles to get through. So to the extent that any kind of a memorial would obstruct the public way, the government has the authority to remove it.
Okay, so that's what we were seeing last week then.
That's right.
Okay, so I'm sure you have heard, I know a lot of us have heard a lot of assumptions about what people can and can't do during protests. What's the biggest misconception people have about protest rights in these public spaces?
That the First Amendment is a get out of jail free card. The First Amendment gives us great protection for our expressive activities, but it does not insulate us for liability if we commit some other crime. So for example, if you're trespassing, if you're damaging property, if you're obstructing other people's ability to get from one point to another, if you're engaging in obscene speech or other forms of speech that are not protected by the Constitution, such as true threats. I don't want to undermine the strength of the First Amendment in protecting expressive activity, but the bottom line, it has to be lawful. And I think some people don't understand that.
Okay, thank you for that insight and clearing that up. Before I let you go, I do want to ask, given Minneapolis's history with large-scale protests, has the legal landscape changed at all in how these situations are handled?
I think it has, and there's a reason for that. There was a Justice Department investigation, which in June of 2023 concluded that Minneapolis police and the city of Minneapolis had violated the rights of protesters. So as a result, we've had new laws, new ordinances, new regulations put in place, and also I would say better training for police. It's not perfect, but it's pretty clear that there is an understanding now that to interfere with constitutionally protected protests is going to be a problem. And therefore, I think we're in a very different situation than we were in 2020, where there's a greater understanding that although, of course, law enforcement in the city have obligations to maintain the rights of property owners, individuals, and others, and to maintain public safety, they cannot stop those who are engaged in lawful protest.
All right. Thank you so much for this great insights and for helping us better understand the legal framework around protests in public spaces. We'll continue to follow developments on the ground and bring updates as the story continues to unfold.